This is Stephanie with Hightower Stitching. Today I'd like to share the finished projects for the Sweetest Star quilt and the Yo-Yo quilt. There's nothing like getting to share when you finish a project and get it done. This is the Sweetest Star, and you see this star all over. This one was really nice. It only used 2 squares, 2.5 inch squares, and 2 7/8 inch squares. And like always, once I had what the pattern was, I thought about how I wanted to do the stitching at the end. And I was going to do this one on the sewing machine, but it could have just as easily been done by hand. And sometimes in hindsight, I always look at them and I say, oh, I wish I had done that by hand. So that lends itself to another project sometime. And if you saw the original video, you'll remember there was a god-awful red border. And that was the first time I really haven't taken a picture or looked at it through a camera. And that really taught me, because I had took all of that out and changed the border on this quilt. And one of the fun things about this was that I used the orange peel, and I did parts of each of the triangles that make the points on the stars, and then I used it on the inside too, and you can see how neat that would be to hand stitch. And then in the corners I have sort of like that double leaf, and then in each of the triangles I did different patterns on the different squares. So this one I did that weaves back and forth. And another one I did something like this. And then I changed over and I did a chevron. And that sort of keeps it from being boring when you're trying to do it. And this is the back of that quilt. And if you've seen mine before, I always like to look at that. And when I did the orange peel on the front, then I turned it over and looked at the back, and that helped me to get an idea of how I wanted to fill in the rest of the square that I had been thinking about. In one of the yo-yo projects, the first one that I started with that had the bands of color running through it was a pillow. And this pillow, it ended up being 17 by 11 inches and has 22 yo-yos in it. These yo-yos were made with 5-inch squares with the largest circle I could get out of those, and it makes a very attractive, nice to sew piece of fabric. And here's the pillow. It's finished. I put the edges together, sewed around, and then stuffed it, and it's machine washable. That's what's so neat. So many of the pillows, you don't have to worry about it. And here's the back, minus this little leaf right here. And you can see how pretty that was. So anything you had done, if you hand stitched a pattern or you put somebody's name or anything like that, and that would be a nice way to finish that out. And always be sure to put your label. And then here was my big yo-yo project. I have 285 yo-yos hand sewn onto the strips, and there is a multitude of colors. And of course the first couple of rows were really easy, and you've seen that in the other video, and I just started in a place and added as I went. And you couldn't put too many down at a time because you'd end up with pins. You would really get pinned. So I learned to do sections at a time. And you would turn the quilt different directions and everything. But I'm going to do another one. And I had thought it might be fun. 2 different things I had thought about. One was to do a baby quilt. Babies love colors. And I thought about it. And you don't have to use blue strips in the back. You could use green or pink or whatever you like. And then decorate it with different colors on that. And you could do it for a wall hanging to hang by the baby bed. Oh, and the other thing that I was thinking about at least part of the quilt to make it easier to do the yo-yos and sew those on, since I was going to sew them on by hand, is to go back, and I've almost got a plan made for a quilt as you go, or a strip quilt, and maybe we'll have a video on that if I can get that worked out. But I've got to tell you, I've got the box of yo-yos started again, and now I'm making them different sizes, and it's just really restful. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. Thank you for watching. Any notes that I have will have been added to the description. If this was helpful, or you liked anything in this project, please hit subscribe and like, and feel free to leave a comment for anything that would help someone else if they start working on yo-yo projects or star projects.